Hello, everybody. Very good to be with you. So, I always want to ask you a question. The question that we're always asking in non duality is how do I wake up? When am I going to wake up? Or here's another one, which when am I going to wake back up? Or when am I going to wake up permanently? Or a thousand variations, but it's always about me and my waking up, right? It really is. And in post-awakening, I know that they say that post-awakening, that awakening is the end of seeking. I know that they say that. And I can tell you that there's the potential for that. But that doesn't have to be that way. It was not that way for me. So if you have had an awakening and you are not awake at this moment, not experiencing conscious awakeness at this moment, and don't throw yourself from the bridge. There's a way for you. There's a way forward for you. I promise you. And so my question is not when are you going to wake up? My question is who is it that's asleep? Who's asleep over there? So let's call you Chris. That seems like a nice generic asexual name. Chris. So Chris, you feel like you're asleep. Who is it that feels like they're asleep? Is that Chris? Chris, it's me. Is that what you're thinking? Is that when I ask you who is it that's asleep? Your first answer is probably me. That's who's asleep. It's me. So let's check and just see who Miss Me is, because the funny thing is I want to tell you that I have done. I don't even know what the number is now, but it's well over 1,000 awakening sessions. And unless somebody was already awake when they came to me, and awake people do have awakening sessions in order to help them clear, but most of the time they're not previously awake. They're not presently awake when a unit comes to me. There's not presently conscious awakeness functioning through it in the vast majority of cases. So when every character comes to me to wake them up, then what is it that's coming to me? It's a character. It's a Chris is coming to Fred so that Fred can wake Chris up. Because it's assumed, but only by Chris, not by Fred, that Chris is asleep. I don't think so. I know better. See, what I know is that there's no Chris. And you say, oh, I know, I've heard this before, and who is it that's saying that it heard it before? Isn't that Chris? Isn't it? Let's see if you're asleep. First off, so how many fingers am I holding up? Or can you count? No, it's not a trick question, including the thumb. How many fingers am I holding up? 5? Okay. If you counted 5, you're not asleep. Now how many fingers am I holding up? If you counted 10, then you're not asleep. So who is it that's asleep over there? Are you really sure that there is somebody asleep over there? Have you noticed how difficult it is to get this person this thing that's supposed to be asleep, how difficult it is to wake it up? Did it ever occur to you that it's so difficult for you to wake it up because it's not asleep to begin with? You're not asleep. 5 fingers, 10 fingers, you're not asleep. You're just not who you think you are. See, when that body goes to sleep, you go to sleep along with it. And when that body wakes up, you wake up along with it. But the thing to understand is that this body is actually a cadaver. And it is an animated cadaver, but it's a cadaver nonetheless. And if you've ever seen a cadaver, and I have, you can see that they're incapable of sleeping. They're laying there, their eyes are closed, but they're not asleep. They're dead. They are in what we sometimes call the big sleep, the long sleep. They're dead. So this cadaver does not have the ability to sleep, and it does not have the ability to wake up. This cadaver does not even have the ability to decay by itself. It just can't. There's not anything this thing can do. Because it has no power. It is an animated cadaver. It is a dead body that is being animated by you. You're the animation, not the cadaver. So what it amounts to is when it looks like that body is going back to sleep, the animation is just coming to a temporary halt, isn't it? You notice that, and I'm talking about deep dreamless sleep. Because in deep dreamless sleep, see, there's still something there in dreaming. The character is still present in dreaming because the dream will be about the character. The character will either be starring in the dream, which is usual, or the character will be witnessing the dream. But one way or the other, that dream is tied up around that character. But in deep dreamless sleep, there is no character. So what we think the character goes to sleep. But the character does not go to sleep because the character does not exist. And the body does not go to sleep because the body does not have the capacity to either sleep or wake. Only the animation that gives this thing the life that is. And you can feel that life. It's not like a secret. Check. Do you know you're here? Excuse me, but can you hear me say excuse me? You can, can't you? You know that certainly what you really know is you know that there's a strong sense that you are here, isn't there? There's a strong sense of being over there, isn't there? Don't you feel like you exist? If I come over there and I ask you, imagine I'm not even a spiritual teacher. I'm your neighbor, and I come over and I say, do you exist? What's your answer going to be? It's going to be, yes, I exist, of course. It's actually all about me. Don't you know that? So you know that you exist, or you certainly sense that you exist. You feel that you exist. So is there something over there that's asleep that still feels that it exists? Is there something over there asleep that wishes it was awake? Or is there something over there that's awake that's pretending it's asleep? Boop. Turn it backwards. As you know, I often call this the backwards teaching. That's because backwards is the way the world works. It's the way, quote, reality, it's the way all of relativity works. It's the way the universe works. Everything is backwards from human logic. It just is. That's the reason you can't see the truth. I woke up a guy earlier today. He'd had an awakening session. There'd been a little bit of a breakthrough, but he wasn't really clear. So today I took him and I just got him his permission to teach him like a child in kindergarten. So over and over again, we went over things like, how many things are there, right? How many things are going? One. I took him through baby talk almost. I mean, it was, and it was funny and it was kind of fun, but at the same time, it just was peculiar because this is a very smart guy in front of me at the time. As a matter of fact, there's always a very smart client in front of me. Well, isn't that nice? Because first of all, I must confess to you that I've discovered that I have the smallest non-dual teaching in the entire world. That's true. I only have one client. me. See, whatever it is that's looking, that camera probably, unless it's awake, a ness looking through that camera lens or into that camera lens, probably thinks that it's not this. It thinks there's this and that. But if there's just one thing going on, which is what we're all talking about all the time, just oneness, there can just be one here. So that's got to be, if there is just one thing going on, that has got to be the same thing that this is. It just doesn't know it. And what I'm going to tell you is that I am awakeness. Please don't confuse this with a Fred Davis. I confused it with a Fred Davis for over 50 years. But there is no Fred Davis. Fred Davis hoped to wake up to the truth of God, and the truth of God woke up to the fiction of Fred Davis instead. There's no Fred Davis. And there's no Chris. See, Chris and Fred are not coming together to talk about this. Chris and Fred are not getting together to talk about it. There is no Chris and Fred, and these units that are apparently talking are it. There's no Chris, no Fred. It looks at it, it feels it. I understand that from one point of view, but that's a very, very limited point of view. And it's a great deal of trouble to keep that point of view actually in focus. You will not believe how much trouble it is to stay asleep until you wake up. Their practices and all that are wonderful. I have one practice with one client, and this is it. I talk to myself all the time. I send myself money so that I'll talk to myself. Although I would talk to myself for free, but don't let that out, because this unit's having a big time over here. I talk to myself. And what I know is that my single client, me, I know when I show up, when Chris shows up, I look over there and I know there's no Chris, but I'll call it Chris. We got to call it something. I may as well call it Chris. That's what everybody else calls it. So no, why, ruffle the tide or fight the tide. So when Chris shows up, I look over there and I see, well, there's no Chris there. There I am over there. And I am there, although I notice there's a lot of Chrisness. See, because there's Chrisness is the conditioning patterns of conditioning over there. The Chrisness is the hair and the accent and the gait and the thinking processes and the way that you tie shoes and eat cereal. All of that is Chrisness. But it's just like Hurricane Fred. There ain't no Chris in the middle of Chrisness. There's Chrisness, but there's no Chris. There's Fredness and there's Hurricane Fred, but there's no Fred in the middle of Hurricane Fred. The center of a hurricane is not the most violent part of the hurricane. It's an absence of weather, and that's the reason you're not seeing it. Is that it's an absence weather. And you go from the one side of the storm, you notice that, and here's a nice spot, and you walk right through it in search of truth again, while you're in truth, looking for truth. You're in oneness looking for oneness. You see the ridiculous nature of this? You're oneness. And you're not asleep. You're awake. You're awakeness. You are awakeness itself. You do not have the capacity for sleep. You really do not. So it is impossible for anyone to wake up something that is not asleep to begin with. What I do is I wake myself up over and over again, virtually every day. I try not to do it more than once a day because it can wear me out. So, because My deal is I'm trying to, because there's no Chris over there, so I'm not asking you to give up Chris, because there's no Chris there. But there is awakeness, which in which we can say is both nothing and everything, depending on how you want to look at it. It's all about perspective. What did Nisargadatta say? I breathe in, and I am everything. I breathe out, and I am nothing. And between those two, my life turns. And I can say exactly that. That's exactly my experience. It's actually exactly your experience, too, because we are the same thing. It's just that you think you're a Chris, or you did before this video. You believed you were a Chris. Maybe you still do. And you can believe that as long as you're willing to suffer for it. Please don't let me take away your suffering ahead of time, right? Because you need to suffer as much as you need to suffer. And I can't know how much that is. I can tell you that for this unit, it required a great deal of suffering. But I do have students who don't have to go to those depths of suffering. They can sort of see, wow, this is not working out, and I can't figure this out. Gee, I wonder if there's anybody who could help me with this. I was too arrogant and too frightened to get a teacher. I was so afraid that teacher was going to tell me I wasn't already awake, and I was. But I was so afraid that he was going to tell me that I wasn't, that I wouldn't face it. This guy today that I tell you that woke up so brightly, just brilliantly, he started out with a small thing. Is that I took him through something. I said, do you see that? And he went, yes. And then he said, it's like this. And I said, exactly. And that encouraged him so much that because I had actually applauded him instead of telling him, no, you don't have it, but keep coming back. One day you'll get it. No, I had just told him, that's right. You've got it, and you've got it right now. And he went, oh, well, that means that this is. And I said, yes. And I literally clapped for him. Because what happens is that awakeness was waking up and seeing, oh, I see, and he's seeing backwards. It's seeing in the sense that it's because what I do is I help you see the mechanisms of the dream. And that's what this video is about, is to show you the mechanisms of the dream. You're not asleep. This dreaming is just a word. What do we mean by dreaming? We mean it's an arising. But in the desert, what do we call those? The things that show up in the desert? Hell, the mirages. So a mirage is also an apparent arising. There it is. But how much does a mirage weigh? Well, it doesn't weigh anything. Well, okay, well, how tall is it? Well, it doesn't have any height either. Well, so let's go on over there and see. And as we walk over toward the mountain, the mirage disappears. And we go check where the mirage was appearing, and there are no marks in the sand from that mountain. That mountain mirage has just, did it disappear? Hell no, it was never there. Chris is not going to disappear. There's no Chris to begin with. The deal that I'm trying to make with you here is I'm not asking you for anything in exchange. I am asking you if you want to make the deal of everything for nothing. And you just can't make up your mind about it. The deal, let me repeat that. The deal that I'm offering you is everything, absolutely everything. And in exchange, I'm asking for nothing whatsoever. The only thing that you'll have to do in order to make this deal, and it'll be way to your satisfaction, I promise. I do have a line of people waiting to talk to me. I always do. I do not have a line of people waiting to untalk to me. In waiting for me to talk them out of what they've seen while they were with me. I do have a line of people who have had awakening sessions who are now want to talk to me because they want to see more clearly. They actually want to live as awakeness, but there are not so many of those. Fewer than you might imagine. A lot more than there used to be, but still fewer than you might imagine. Because most everybody wants to live in peace. See? But that's Chris wanting to live in peace, and there's no Chris. So in the absence of a Chris, what do you find here right now? Peace. It's already here. You are this awake space. It's already silent. It's already still. So when you go looking for stillness and silence, you are noise on the search for silence. Does that make any sense at all? No, it can't happen. In the same way that they say, well, you can't find this thing as long as you're seeking. And that's true. And when I heard that, I said, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm not seeking anymore. Maybe that'll trick God and he'll show himself. But I found out I couldn't not seek. But when I woke up, I noticed, oh, they're right, you can't find it as long as you're seeking. Because you're it, and you're looking for it, which is what you're looking for. What's looking is what you're looking with is what you're looking for, only you're looking for it over there. But there's no over there, because there's only one oneness. Count them. We are back to that mighty math of one. I'm going to keep this simple and short and get out of here right now. I do hope this helps. I can hardly imagine that it won't, but surely there will be folks out there who will not be able to hear this. And you know what I tell you? Repetition is the mother of clarity. That's the way it worked for me too. Listen to this again. And if you get it, wonderful. And if you don't, give it a day or two or whatever you feel like. Whatever happens is what we're really talking about. And watch it again. Good luck. I do love you. Bye-bye.